Okay, I think we're ready to get going. Just want to make sure we're ready to record. Good to go. All right, great. Well, welcome to day 5 here. Want to get through a little bit of this information pretty quick because I want to get into the Excel document and the homework. So what we're going to do here is we're going to review the homework. It's pretty important to our today, to what we're doing today. We're going to review the day 4 materials, but we may look at that a little bit later. Get into the live market session, look at other instruments, and then spend some time with Q&A. The bulk of today is going to be in the market session. Excuse me. So with that, let me bring up the homework from last night. All right. And the homework you had for last night was to take a look at your charts and put this together, get these numbers out. And again, if your numbers are different than mine, I'm not going to worry about it too much. The key thing in all of this is that you worked to get those numbers out there. There we go. Okay. So from yesterday, I got to move I got an oil chart up here. I got to move that. Second as I bring up my yes. Almost there. Okay, it's just populating here. I had closed this chart. Was trying to move this chart and accidentally closed it, so I'm just waiting for it to repopulate. I'll bring it up. So what I did in the overnight was to take a look at the levels and start populating the levels in the fields here, and start to get a context for what the market was trying to do. And pretty obviously yesterday it was trying to move lower. It did a pretty good job of that. Our open at 23.75, much higher than the previous day. So the previous day's open was 1905.50, and this opened about 22 points higher. There we go. All right. So that opened about 22 points higher, and then the IB, the first hour of trading, 25.75 down to 18.25, and our close was lower. So one of the things that I do as I'm looking at this first sheet, this first spreadsheet, and this is why I have these highlighted in yellow, is I'm looking at the open and the close and the VPOC. The other, if there's a fourth element to getting a quick context, so if there was a formula that I use for kind of a quick context, shortcut for context, it's the open, close, VPOC, and then overall volume for the day, which was about 1.8 million. Previous day was about 1.3, so significantly higher. And the reason I do that is because when I look at volume, if price is moving up higher in the week and volume is coming out of the market, that just tells me that even though it's moving up, it's not being accepted. It's basically the Super Bowl ticket example that I gave you a couple days ago, where you could have a few participants in the auction left, and yet they're continuing to push price higher. And when they're done, we're likely to get a pretty big move down. So I start looking for that activity and for them to be done. So the other element of that would be volume. So what I'm looking at initially is once again, is the open, the close, and VPOC in this chart. And you could add overall daily volume to that as well. And these four elements will start to give you the overall context of the market, and that is to be put in context to the overall chart in terms of whether or not you're in a swing high, are you in a swing low. I remember yesterday we looked at the different areas, swing high, swing low, and how the low volume areas start to separate the different swings, so that let's say you come down through a low volume area and you can see a high volume area, a price distribution zone, then a low volume area. You come down through that low volume area, and then you have, and I'll just show it to you here. So this is what we talked about yesterday. So this is the ES volume profile. This goes back to June. You can see volume waning as it comes down right now. So what we would be looking for with acceptance, and we still may get that, if you look, what you'll see is kind of an inverse here of volume. So as price has been coming down, it's also been smaller as it's come down. Now, the individual days have seen some pretty good volume, and we would expect that, especially at all-time highs or near all-time highs. We would expect volume to be lower on the day as price is moving higher, and we would expect overall volume to be higher as price is moving lower, as participants look to liquidate their positions. So what we talked about was there is kind of a natural swing between this level. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so it stands out. And what you're looking for in any market is you're looking for these natural kind of swing areas. Red, I just want to make these bigger. Looking at the screen, I want those to pop a little bit more for you. So after looking at a couple of charts for a little while, it won't take you too long to start to identify these things. So what I can see up top here, swing high, swing low, high, back down low, high. You can see these things, right? And then when it breaks through, it comes down right? It comes down, puts in a swing high right there, swing low, gets up to this high volume area, comes back down. And what this starts to mean to us is that these levels, and then we've got a little bit of a, this is a major low volume area, this 1906, 75 to 1907 quarter is a pretty major area. But what that means is that as we look at these distributions, especially these major ones, what this chart tells me is that if price is between this 37.75 and 44.75, I can see how price acted, moved up quickly, moved down, bounced off this level. Once it moved back up above that level, this held. So this is kind of a DMZ, demilitarized zone, if you will, for me, between this distribution up here from 45 up through this 80 level, and this distribution below from 38 and a quarter to this about 1910 down to that 7 and a quarter 0675 level. So this level starts to become of relative importance in all of these levels that I can see where we have these major swings. And again, you know that the market isn't perfect. Sometimes it's going to come out, it's going to test outside of these swing areas. But in general, what I'm looking for is if price starts getting above this 1910 area, then I'm going to start looking for price to move back up to 1475. And my expectation at 1475 is that we're going to start to get volume and we're going to see price rotate. And that's going to move, price is likely then going to test up to that 1725. And there may be an opportunity for short trade at 1725. It really depends upon the day. But if price comes through 1725 with some volume, then I'm going to be looking long on a retest of this area, 1725, this low volume area. And then I'll be looking for a target right in front of this high volume area, probably right around 2350, 2375, with a potential test back up to 3075, 31. So this level around 1910 starts to become pretty important to me. And when I look at what's happening right now in the market, here's this 1910 level right here. And the print, since moving up, has been relatively weak to the offer. It doesn't mean that this market is coming down. It moved up with some strength when there was some announcement out of Russia that they were going to, Putin was going to start easing tensions in the Ukraine area. Let me just bring up a profile for this overnight session. All right, price came up, and if you look where we have our low volume area, it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise to me. Shouldn't be a surprise to you at this point. That price, when price came through right there, 0675, right? 0675 to about 07 and a quarter. This is a level we've been talking about for a couple of days. It's a longer term low volume area, right? So if we go back to this chart, we'll see that level right here, right there. So, and it's a longer term low volume area. So it's not really a surprise to me that price moved above that. And then if you look, I'm going to try to make this bigger. I know that it's real hard to see sometimes, so I apologize for that. Make this a little bit bigger so you can see this better. And now you can see at once it came through this morning, it tested back down, and then from 725 moved back up to 14. And if we go back now and look at what we have here, this high volume area is right at 1475. So it's not surprising to me that price moved away from here all the way back up towards this high volume area. Okay, not a surprise. So right now, and we need to wait for the open, which is going to be in another 13 minutes. But what we're looking for, so as I do this homework, these levels start to become very important. This is a key level, this 1907, 1906, 75, 1907 quarter. This is a key level, as well as this at 1917. And if we get through 1917 with any kind of volume, again, I'll be looking for 24, 25, and possibly up to that 30, 31 level. If we struggle at this 17 level and we start moving down, even if we get, what I'm looking for this morning is acceptance around this 14, 15 level. Looking for acceptance. I'm looking for, after the open, if price moves up and we start getting volume and VPOC around 14, between 14 and 15. We start getting heavy volume around there, then what this is telling me is this market is auctioning relatively normal, and I can expect the test to 17, possibly back up to 24.75, and if price moves back up to 24, 25, say 24, 25 level, 26, and VPOC or high volume area starts being established here later in the day, in the morning or the day, then that tells me I have acceptance higher. And at some point, it's likely to go and test back up to this swing high. As far as potentially 37.75, and this low volume area is where I'd start to expect to see if sellers are going to step back in, and the overall context and condition of these buyers and sellers is that they really do want price lower, then this would be an area that I would expect to start to see sellers, and possibly up here around 44, 44.75, 44 level. So what I'm looking for this morning is, after the open, where does the market start gaining acceptance? Is it above 1907, 1906, 75? So if we start getting a volume profile that starts developing out and we can see a taper or very low volume down in this area, and volume starts growing, then I'm going to look for a long position, and I might need the intraday order flow chart and the intraday volume profile to look for a long position to take that up towards 14 to 15 level. And I'll look to take some off right in front of that, and if we start getting more volume up here, I'll look to hold to 17 and possibly higher. I think a question about how to go back to May. One of the issues with the contracts, of course, is that you're using only the contract. So, like, if you're using the September contract, then you're going to have a little bit of issue going back with data. And DB and I are going to go through that after the session today, and then I will make a video that'll be out on the website for everybody, so that you can everybody can see how to use the continuous contract to go back across contracts, which is necessary for oil as well. So I want to make sure, based on everything we talked about, the elements of the volume profile, which is high volume areas act as magnets, right? They're fair price. So at fair price, we expect rotation, right? Because fair price says that both buyers and sellers are engaged in trade. And so if this 1907, 1906, 75 area, sellers can't get price down through here, and this is rejected and price starts moving up, we would start to look for price to move up to this 14, 15 level and test 17. And if price comes through this 17 level, and again, you need to understand that even though it comes through 17 quarter, it may still come down. So this is our longer term guideline. What we need to refer to is the day's activity, because the current day is the best context for the current buyers and sellers. What that means is, if in the current day the market shows a strong low volume area at 1450, then there might be a trade if it comes through at 17, but I'm going to look around 1475, 15 level for that long, and I'm going to use the intraday profile to give me a little better guidance. I'm going to put a little more weight in the intraday profile. But what I'm looking for is price to start to move back up to 24. So I'm hoping that makes some sense, right? If you understand the elements of the volume profile, you understand that the green lines, high volume areas, become a magnet for price. The red lines, price either breaks through or it becomes like a brick wall where price bounces off of. So right now we're above this 675, 7.25 level. And so as we look at our overnight, we have a very, very solid low volume area in the overnight here. And we have one down at 1902.50, which is pretty close to our, we have a high volume area, a composite high volume area at 1902.25. So what that means is, since we're above this right now, I'm considering this to be an unfair low, especially given what price has done so far. So what that means this morning is I will look for a trade in this area between 1906.75 and 1907.25. I'm going to use the intraday profile and the intraday auction to give me guidance. Now, if for some reason this drops down here before the open and drops down below 06.75, that may change. So I put all of my data in, and I'm doing an assessment. Is price trying to go higher, lower, etc. And then I come to this chart. I put in the previous day's close, and for my daily, midterm, and a little longer term, which actually right now are the same, midterm and long term are the same because we're at all-time highs, I put in the high volume areas that are above. So basically I'm taking the high volume areas from this chart, the longer term chart, and the low volume areas, and I'm just plugging them in. And what I'm starting to look for across these things are confluence. I'm looking to see where the daily, and right now this is the same, they start lining up. and where I have agreement, and that could be within a point, especially with the high volume areas. So right here at 2075 and 21, that is agreement to me. That's close enough. So what I would put in here is 1920.75 to 1921. And now what I'm looking for this morning, if price starts moving up, my expectation is that in the current day's volume profile, we would start to see rotation around this range, and we would start to see the profile show volume. If that doesn't happen, and the volume in the volume profile becomes very thin up to this level, and price starts moving back down off of that level, then I start looking at the next low volume area at 1725, and I start looking at that one potentially as a long, but if it bounces off of 21 hard, then my trade that I really want is I want to see price come through 17 and then take a short on a retest. Because if this isn't fair price for buyers up here, then they'll start looking for another area. That might be here, but I'm going to let the print start telling me what I need to do. So then once I have all these numbers plugged in, then I move over to a trading plan and I talk through the day. A big range, much more volume, higher highs, lower lows. And then I start looking at the numbers that came off of this chart, right? The low volume areas, the high volume areas. And I start plugging those in to start building a script for my plan. So the 1975-25 low volume level was broken with over 30,000 contracts. What that means is when sellers came through this level, they came through hard. There was a big push of volume just in a matter of minutes. So sellers showed some serious through that level. That's important to me. That's the most current context up at 1725. Doesn't mean it'll happen again. Doesn't mean it absolutely will. But it tells me the context here is that sellers showed some conviction up there. The last test high for the day was up at 650, which is close to that 675, 7.25, which is a composite low volume area. And beyond that, the test was up to the last test high was to 1375. And so that's another place where I'm looking for sellers to come in. And if you look at what's happened so far in the overnight, where does it test up to? Right to 1375. Okay, we got her open. And the open price is at 1909. Wrong chart, sorry. All right, that was the wrong chart. 1909. First swing high was here, 1910. Now we're coming down to this level 675 to 07. Because we're coming down here, here was my first opportunity for a trade. We're down to 775. Remember, this was a composite, not composite, but this was a low volume area in the overnight as well. Now you can, this is unfinished to the upside. Very much unfinished to the upside. Doesn't quite look finished to the downside either, but we have weakness at the bid here, weakness at the bid here. But you see this volume bar that's building out right here at 1910.25. This is showing that we do have some sellers absorbing, but we're getting acceptance higher. Remember, volume means acceptance. We just had VPOC move up. I would be looking for maybe a few ticks more beyond this level. But when you saw that bar jump out like that, what that means is that the sellers are holding in this area. Profile doesn't look quite done to the upside and not to the downside either. So my trade scenario in my plan was if price opens above 1906, and that should have been 1906.75, I'll look for a potential long on a test down to 1906.75, and then a potential short around that 1375.14. Price comes through that area, my next short will be at 1617 area, which are levels that we talked about this morning. So I'm still looking for a long down in this area. And I'm going to be using this chart, this 6-4 order flow chart, to provide the information for me of whether or not I'm going to get in. Ray, in terms of long-term and mid-term, I'm looking at the swings. Remind me a little bit later and I'll go through that. But my mid-term and long-term are really, let me just put it this way, like with the ES, if it takes 4 months for it to rotate in an area, then my midterm may be 4 months. I want to see all the data in that rotation. If it's 3 weeks before it moves on to another level, then that midterm may be 3 weeks. So I care more about the overall swings than I do specific time. So I would, in general, I would consider short-term a day to a week, and then midterm in general from over a week, 2 weeks to several months, and then longer term 3+ months. Now our settlement close was at 5 1/4 yesterday, and VPOC was at 5. There's 7 1/4. I was looking for a little bit more strength at the bid, or at the offer rather, to get into that trade. Looking at the profile, almost looks done to the bottom. Like to see one more tick down to 1907 at least. So what I'm looking for now is I want to see strength back into the bid and I want to see continued strength back into the bid here. We have VPOC up at 1909, and I want to see price start climbing to 1909. So one of the things that I can do is start looking to, it's still early, so this could move around a lot. Look to take some off in front of VPOC, but this is the trade that I wanted from last night, and it's set up because the overnight confirmed it. Now the profile looks finished to the downside. If this breaks through, if this starts breaking through with a lot of volume down here, I'm not going to want to stay into this real long, because this may start to become an unfair high. You can see the activity back at the bid here growing. So if we get a lot of growth here at 1907 at the bid, I'll give this to see how this goes. I've got a point now. VPOC just shifted down to 1908. So that means one of two things. That means this is the other side stepping in to shut movement off to the downside, and I would expect to see price start moving up again. If it can't and it starts moving back down into the bid, what this means is that this is accepting price a little lower, and we can start to expect price come through this 1907.67 area. Strength at the offer, yes. Looking for strength at the offer through here. And I want to see continued strength. The other thing I want to see is I want to see VPOC shift back up to 1909. Don't want to see that strength back down at the bid. Do want to see buyers holding. So what this is saying is that we still have sellers who have interest. Now at this point, what I could start to do is potentially, with all of this activity at the bid, start to manage my risk. Because once I see all this red, doesn't mean the trade's not going to work, but it has to tell you that this is additional risk. All right, so we've got a significant amount. You got to take the shot where the print tells you to take that shot, right? And it came up and could not get through this level. Like I said, if it can't get through this, this was VPOC at 1909. If it can't get back up through here and establish VPOC, then this level starts becoming at risk if we start seeing strength back into the bid. So what I'm going to do is go back to my news. Okay, I don't see anything in there specifically right now. So you can see the low volume area here again, still at 1906.75. Lot of activity back in at the bid here. So my expectation is we're going to come back down towards 1905.25, which is the close from yesterday. And I have 1905 as VPOC. And this isn't giving me really any pullback to get in. So there's settlement. Now, I'm not taking any trade. What I want to see if this was just a close, kind of a fill the gap. Nope. And there's VPOC from yesterday. You can still see the strength back down on the bid, and the profile shows that this isn't done yet to the downside. Now now that I can see that, if price does come back up to this 650, 675, and the print gives me the indication, I would look to short that level. Thanks, Alan. And it may not give me that opportunity. So what I'm doing, what I need to do quickly is identify, let me get my other volume profile up here. All right. Okay, we're coming back up to this level. I was looking for a little bit more strength and relative weakness in the offer, strength at the bid. And you can see how that came back up. There was some strength back at the bid here. I was looking for a little bit more weakness at the offer. All right, so what I'm seeing right now is down here there was pretty significant strength at the bid. These last two times down right now, these sellers have not followed through yet, but this is unfinished to the downside. So my expectation, doesn't mean it will happen, my expectation is that we'll see this maybe another tick. So what I did is I created this, here's yesterday's profile, and I'm looking at VPOC at 1905. Here's yesterday's profile, here's VPOC at 1905. You can see the low volume area from today at 1907, 675, which is what we expect. And if I start getting rotation around 1905, and we start building volume out here, then there's the very real possibility that this will follow its conclusion all the way down. This wasn't finished yesterday at 1899.75, that this will follow to a conclusion to the bottom of this this rotation. The closing swing low from yesterday was right here at 1903.25. So we have VPOC shift down to 1906. Again, when I'm watching the print, a little bit better finish here. And we did tick down into that level. So here's my issue with just taking a short, and the short would have worked off of here for a couple of points, as much as that long worked there, is that this is still a low volume area for the day at 675.07. So this is still a key level for me, but I show weakness, and that could change any time, but the bid is showing weak at both of the bottoms of these probes. And now we have a probe higher, and this print 68 by 436 tells me we're likely to tick up at least another, and we're still getting strength at the bid, so let's see what happens here. So I could take this short, and this would be, so what I'm going to do is knock that down. This would be the setup that I'm looking for in terms of a short. this inherently tells me that there is risk. The weakness at the bid tells me that there is risk. Doesn't mean the trade won't work, but it tells me that there is some additional risk. And what I would be looking for is the next time, if I got into that trade, the next time down, I didn't take a market order because of where price was at. I would have been in at 1906, and I don't want to be that far away from this because I want to be able to control my stop. So I'm going to take this off simply because in this probe down, I've got more weakness at the bid. Doesn't mean the trade won't work, but this is what I was talking about the other day, is it inherently tells me that there's additional risk as there's more activity at the bid. The profile would suggest a short here. The other thing to consider is if price does pop up through here, then this isn't quite finished to the upside as well, and we could see price just continue to move higher. So the additional risk by the weakness at the bid, 1, 2, 3 times down, is you know, I did an assessment and said there's risk there, and it's not one that I want to take at this point. Does that make sense what I'm looking at in these prints at the bid? I can see weakness at the bid. So I could have taken this trade and, you know, taken another point off, but I'm looking for something more than that. Here's 07. We're coming through here, but it's not like it's you know, the volume is crazy. And you know, it's a good thing I didn't take that trade because now it's come through. I would have been stopped out on that trade. So I can see activity here, a pretty good activity at the offer right here at 1907.75. When I look at the volume profile, I still have a low volume area here at 675. And remember up here at 10.25 is where we started to see some sellers. So my next trade is potentially a long back down here. Potentially a long back down here. And if these sellers start getting taken out, remember from the narrative, my target is still up around that 1375 because the last swing high from yesterday was up around that level, 1375. We have it right here to 14. So, and this is where it dropped in the overnight or in the pre-market. It hit 1913.75 in the pre-market to the tick, which was the last, not the last swing high. The last swing high I had marked closing swing high at 575. It hit 1375 in the overnight in the pre-market here, and then that's and then started coming down from there. So when I look at my potential, right, and I'm still managing to a a certain number for the day. When I look at my potential, there's still potential back up to this 1375, 14, if not higher. So this could have been an area where I would look to take a breakout at 725, 750 because of all the weakness down at the bid. This would have been a good example, a good opportunity or higher probability opportunity for a breakout. The issue for me is that we're so close to this low volume area that I would not want to see it, pop up a couple of ticks and drop a little lower. But in terms of overall probability, after all of this weakness, it's coming back up through this low volume area. It is still a possibility. So now as I look at this, I see strength at the offer, weakness at the bid. The temptation for me would be, or anybody, would be really strong to go long with this combination right here and to say, oh, that's it. That's where we're coming to. However, if I get in here, there is a realistic possibility that this will rotate back down to this 1907, 675 level. So if I'm a risk manager first, then what I have to consider is if I get in down, if the print tells me to get in long down at 1907, 7.25, 675, down in this area, my ability to manage my risk significantly improves. If I get into the trade here at 0850 or 0825, I could do that because it looks like the bid's getting weak. Looks like it's getting weak here again. But now what I have to do is I need to give this trade almost 2 points. And if sellers decide they're gonna retest this area and jump back down today's VPOC and it bounces off of VPOC, then I'm down 2 points on the trade. And as a risk manager, I just don't want to do that. So everything right now in terms of the print is suggesting that and this is the objective part. Everything in the print is telling me that this is a good area to go long, and it very well may be. I may miss this trade. But as a risk manager first, I have to consider that my better risk management is down here. Does that make sense what I'm showing you? Question, I like the retest level approach personally. I do too. But do I consider breakouts under certain conditions as probable? Yes, this is one of them. This was an example of where I would consider a breakout because we had so much weakness, and in the profile, you see the interest waning down here in the profile. So my point is, if it was going to come through here, price was most likely coming back up to this high volume area to 1909, 1909 quarter. And there it is. So we have a little bit of a wall here. Would prefer 1907.25. Oh, I couldn't even move my target. Sorry, I looked away at another chart. My goal was to move my targets higher. Sorry, I was looking over at another chart. I mean, I'm not sorry for making profit, but my goal was to take one off back up here and then take my next one off around You know, if the print told me to do that, it's not telling me to take that off yet. And then look to see if we can't get back up to this 1375, 1350 level. That's a good question. Why do I have my ATM so low to start with? I need to change that. I normally, when I take the trade, I normally am just focused on the chart, on this chart, and so I'm able to move my my target and manage it pretty quick. And the one thing for me is I should move my target, and it looks like we may be getting another long right now. My stop I usually will keep, but what I don't know based on the auction is, you know, if I get in with 3, then or 5, what's the most logical place for me to start scaling, and if I'm going to scale 2 or 3 or 1, and how am I exactly I'm going to manage that trade. But you know, I'm not complaining. Yeah, absolutely, Ben. It's easier to have it higher and drag it down. You're exactly right. On this ATM, it's set pretty tight, so I just need to change. But I'm normally pretty effective at managing my targets and my stop. So here would be another opportunity. What I'm watching is activity grow at the bid here, 681.87. So what I don't see in the auction is that sellers or activity to the bid is really relenting yet. Doesn't mean this level won't work and the trade won't work to the upside, but I don't see that yet. And remember, I told you I'm watching the prints above as well. Okay, that moved pretty quick for me. I took that trade off because of the weakness here at the bid, or at the offer rather. All right, I'm looking away from this chart right now, so if I miss this trade, I want to see it. What I really kind of want to see here is a stop run, and then price pop back up. Back down to settlement to close from yesterday. All right, pretty good volume through this area. I'm going to keep my mouse down here, wait to see what happens. I was looking at a potential for price to come through here, but the stop run I was looking for would be down to about 1906, 0575, and then it continued lower. Interesting auction this morning. Hold on one second, please. All right, sorry about that. So VPOC is down below at 1906. Weakness, weakness. We're getting a little two-sided trading here, but if we start getting strength back into the bid, I'm going to look to take this breakout and see if we can't get back up to 10 and higher. So weakness, weakness, weakness. I want to see buyers start to pop. I don't want to see that weakness back at the bid here, or at the offer at 1908 quarter. Just so you know, I do not look at any questions while I'm in a trade. If you're sending me questions, I'm watching this print earnestly. All right, I want to see this get to at least 1909, 1909 quarter. Okay. This is opening swing high. Now I want to see it pop above opening swing high. 1909 quarter. Come on, baby needs shoes. Baby needs shoes. Come on. What I'm looking for is a move back up to this. This looks a little unfinished to me. There we go. Now, this is where I use the volume cluster analysis. You see the volume cluster analysis right here. Right here. So I'm putting in my stop right here at 1908.25. The reason is because I have weakness at the offer right here. And then the buying coming in here. So I've got my stop right in behind it. Make sense? I did look at the question here. Do I focus on the number of contracts or the color? Both. And I can tell you again, you know, some of this just takes time. And I have been using the print to trade with for so long that it didn't take me long. My learning curve was not steep at all with OFA. Once I set the colors and had a little bit of experience with them and understood what they meant to me, then all was good. All was real good. So the colors and the numbers for me right now work together significantly to help me manage trades. Now, what I don't really want to see is another move back down to 1907, 1906.75. You know, sometimes you get into the trades and you just want to say, come on already, let's go. Let's go. Yeah, look at that. So, yeah, might get taken out here. All right, well, that's the way it goes. And there is weakness at the bid, strength at the offer, and that may be a good spot again. But you got to take your stops where you take them. All right, after my trade is over, can I talk about what made you decide to switch from a pullback to a breakout strategy? And is it possible to come up with a general principle what alerts to consider switching? All right, so I'm going to step away from the trade to talk through the trade I just made. Are you okay with that? So my objective for the day is 500, and I'm $75 away from my objective. Now, if each of you could make $500 a day, would that be a good thing? Good. All right. So, why did I consider going to a breakout as opposed to a pullback strategy? The reason I wanted the breakout, and you can see the pullback would have worked well too, right? So I got in here, and it came down. This would have been a good strategy to watch it pull back, and I might have gotten a tick better price, maybe. The reason I did that is because in looking, I'm going to scrunch this up a little bit, and looking at the profile, I see a relative finish to the downside. So, you know, my eye just kind of fills this stuff in. What I see to the downside overall is that as price is moving lower, there's less participation. BPOC is higher. When I look at the auction profile to the upside, there's a little bit of a finish to the upside as well. But this tried testing lower 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And in every single case, as it tested lower, let me bring this over. In every single case as it tested lower, we had one time, the first time, where there was some strength at the bid. And then weakness, 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 weakness. And then when it tested lower again, weakness, 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 weakness. All of this weakness suggested to me that this was going to come up. I could have put my entry, when looking at the profile, I could have put my entry right here at 750. But I wanted to get it more than just a couple of ticks away from that low volume area. So I put it a little bit, actually, I wanted to put it at 775. I put it at 08. But that's where I wanted to put it, up there, looking for a breakout. Looking for, if this is all weakness, if this is weak and it comes back through this level, and this just came a little lower than I wanted it to. If this is all weak, then my expectation is that it's going to start to traverse the thick part of this profile and look to come back up to at least 1909, 1909 quarter. So if I'm in at 775, 08, you know, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get at least a scale. And I got 1025, 2.25 points on that. So that's why I decided to take the breakout. The other reason I decided to take the breakout and not the pullback is because if I got in at 775, that's where I should have gotten in. 775, I got in at 08. 775, look at the space I have for a pullback. It was going to happen really quick. 1, 2, 3 ticks. And my perspective on all of this weakness was if it finally came back through this low volume area, then the probability or the likelihood is that it was going to keep moving back up to that 1909 quarter, 1909 level, which would give me at least an initial scale. VCA settings for 6-4 chart. Yeah, let me bring these up. All right, I'm going to move that because I'm going to wind up trading, and I don't necessarily want to do that right now while I'm messing with my all right, on this chart, here's my VCA settings. My responsive spread is 3, my initiating spread is 5. Custom color codes, I usually show secondary levels, and additional levels and period classification are false for me. Yep. Now, as I look at this, I don't see a scenario. There isn't a scenario here that I could have changed, that if I would have had, for example, a 3-4, 4-5 as my setting difference, I don't see an example here that would suggest I would have been able to stay in that trade. Now, look what we have here. Weakness at the tops, weakness at the bottom. This would be another potential breakout trade. See the weakness, 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 weakness. It's like nobody wants us. This is, or more so, this is just a bunch of short-term intraday traders just kind of taking profit here. Either way, it's so close to this low volume area that I'm not interested in taking a trade one way or the other. Now, there's a potential signal for me long. With 207 at the top, we got a neutral bar, at least right now as it's developing. I just don't like the auction. I don't like how this is continuing to go lower. I don't like that the buyers had an opportunity to take this higher, and then they just kept getting weak. I don't like that. So it tells me that this has potential to go lower. Now, what I'm also not real excited about right now, because we're continuing to pass through this low volume area, is I'm not real excited about necessarily just taking a short now off of this level as well. So I'm looking at the print. I see 20, 25.44 down here. And that's pretty significant. 26 now, 26.05. That's very heavy at the bid. Very, very heavy. But if it doesn't move, what does that tell you about all the sellers at 1906? All of that activity at the bid at 1906. It's being bought, it's being held, it's being absorbed, exactly. So this went weak, and look at that, just changed over again. There's too much back and forth. What I cannot see in this auction is specific conviction. I see specific conviction, like this move up. You see all the green, which suggests strong, but look at the sell side. The numbers are disgusting. I mean, that's terrible numbers on the ES. So yeah, this was all strong, but relative to the sell side here, it was awful. There was nothing to challenge them. So while this may show strength in moving up, and I got my target very quickly, there was nothing on the buy side that continued. And when the selling activity at the bid started again at 2076, what I would have seen if buyers in this market truly had conviction is I would have seen this activity likely met with buying activity, maybe, you know, at maybe back down to 1909.50, where the opening swing high is. But I didn't. I mean, look at the buying: 5, 234, 1119, or 119, 187, 47, 98. There's just no conviction to the upside. So outside of this at 1906, and this actually may prove to hold, and longs may be actually absorbing. I'm sorry, longs may be absorbing the sellers to look to get stops to finally run this area. I'm still looking for this level back up here and possibly higher. But there's too much activity around this low volume area right now for me to do anything with. So for right now, the bottom of this initial balance, and we're not done. We've got another 12 minutes before the IB, the first hour of trading, is over. The bottom of IB is 04.25. So at this point, with 12 minutes left in the IB, and with as much activity as happening around this low volume area, is I would just wait. There's absolutely no reason for me to take a trade. No reason. So that's the low of the IB. The high of the IB, of course, is up at 11.25. How do I keep getting that message? So what I would be looking for now, and this is the setup we talked about, I believe, yesterday. What I'd be looking for now in the profile, get rid of that, is for price to break one of these levels, either 1904.25 or 1911.25 after another 10, 11 minutes. So I want these levels to hold for another 10, 11 minutes. I want this to be the IB. So the IB is simply the first hour of trading, the range, top and bottom of the first hour of trading. And right now the high of this session is 11.25, and the low of this session is at 4.25. That's it. That's how you determine the IB. We've got 10 minutes left in this session. When the clock hits 10:30 Eastern time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, this is officially, IB is officially set. Now, here's another thing: is if price comes up a couple of minutes to a minute right before IB, and it starts flirting with this level just before IB is set, the 10:30 a.m. Eastern, this market's being tricky enough where what we just may see, and you got to be careful of this, is a couple of ticks to the upside and then a move back down below it, maybe even one tick. We'll see. But my preference would be that these levels hold. Same thing down here. If price, a couple of minutes before 10:30 Eastern sets and it starts flirting down here, we may see this thing go one tick, two ticks, and turn around. I won't take a short. This is a pullback scenario. This is not a breakout scenario for me. This trade is never a breakout scenario. What I would need to see is I would need to see volume starting to build. I want to see another distribution level below this area. I want to see this turn into a low volume area for the day, and I want to see volume starting to grow out. And then I will look to take a short on a retest of that area. Same thing with a long. Price comes up after IB is set. As long as the profile leaves this as a low volume area in the day and we start getting volume and another distribution higher, then on a pullback, I will take a long, 1150, 1175, looking for this 1125 to 11 to hold, and on up towards 1475, 15, and potentially higher. So during the day, we talked about this. My if-then scenario now is if IB holds to either side and price comes through IB to either side after it's set now in 7.5 minutes, then I will look to take a continuation trade in one of those directions. Yeah, Ben, that's exactly right. This is what you talked about when LVAs start to get filled in and it becomes dangerous. Yep. This is still a low volume area, but you know, the market respected it once, twice, and then look what started happening. Just passed right through it, passed through it, passed through it. And so what this tells me is that this low volume area at some point may start working, quote unquote, again, but it is not in the context of this current market. So I am not interested in this trade. Now, the other thing that I would do is look at the volume coming in. This was neutral up here. Look at the volume coming in, draw this trend line, and if we started getting volume and buying clusters back above this level, I may consider starting to look for long. But in the realm of this activity and volume profile, relative to volume profile, there's no more trade until IB is broken and IB leaves, or that breaking leaves a low volume area. And then it's either short or long on a retest. So I've got my IB level set. I can open this up again. What actually would be great, and I don't think it's going to happen here. I see the buying coming in. Looks like we're going to be moving higher. Had a push down, then we had weakness. Weakness at the bid here again. This looks like it's going to push a little higher. And this actually might be an opportunity just to take a long right here at 07. But this whole bar right now is still developing. So you saw that it was a buying cluster. Now it's looks to be a selling cluster. If price starts coming back down below this level, I would still consider this as being as holding. I mean, DB, you're probably better at this strategy than I am, but that's the way that I would look at that. That this is holding, which would give me a little bit more confidence in taking this trade. Again, has to break this level. Going to watch closing swing low 325. Remember 325? Remember the significance of 325? Yeah, I can show you the momentum settings in a second. Anybody remember the significance of 325? Would have seen it yesterday. Or the pre-market yesterday. Remember in the pre-market yesterday, this price was coming down. As price is coming down, there was a significant buyer that came in at 325. So I don't know how you would define this market this morning, but I would define this as very choppy, volatile. Here's settlement again. Here's a close. I can't get through that. Having some difficulty. And a relatively difficult market to trade in. I mean, even on the minute chart, and again, I just use this for volume. When I see wicks and tails like this on just my minute bars, when you see big wicks and tails on a minute chart, that tells you that price is relatively volatile. And typically, what I'd prefer to see is big bodies on the chart and not wicks and tails, because it's a short amount of time. It tells me we're getting responsive selling and buying and price is moving pretty strongly, very quickly. Very, very choppy, very difficult to trade in. So watch this profile down here. Remember when I said that got to be careful if this thing starts ticking right in front of IB being set. IB is about 2.5 minutes away. IB being set. Whenever price, whenever price is kind of flirting with an edge of an IB, a minute or so in front of the IB being set, which is now a minute and a half. The thing you have to be careful for is for this thing, don't take the breakout, because sometimes what you'll get is you'll get 1 or 2 ticks down below the IB, and then it'll just turn in the other direction. Maybe even 3, 1, 2 to 3 ticks and turn in the other direction. What I want to see beyond, and now I have to move this because IB is now here. Getting strength back to the bid. Now, if I would have just had a long bias all day, I could have been in trouble. What I do want you to see now is the profile. See this little nub of volume right there at 1904? That's, as price is moving up, that says all of this was being held, at least right now. Price was being held down here at 04. Remember, there was a big buyer right here at 3 1/4, which is where the closing swing low is right now. Sellers hitting the bid at 1904. Sellers are hitting the bid. Buyers are holding with limit orders. That's the only way that price did not go down here. But that's not a small number. I mean, when I read the print as a process, I look at 1738 and 1107 compared to what was going on before, and what I can see is that sellers' activity to the bid is starting to get aggressive again down here. Okay, our IB is set. Here's VPOC today, 1906. I suppose I could extend this. I will show you the settings, the other settings in the 6-4 chart. Okay, we're closing swing high, weakness, strength at the bid. Now, if you were maybe playing a little bit more risk, then you could potentially take a long here, but it's not my trade. Neutral, buying, price is moving. It's going to continue higher, at least another tick. It's not done at 06 1/4. And I can just see that from the way it's auctioning. It's not done there. More buyers. So again, there might have been trades that you know, some people would look at and say I missed, which is fine. You know, it doesn't bother me. Trades that I missed, however, I what I'm looking to do is read the print so I can buy with buyers and sell with sellers and manage my stop effectively. So that was a short opportunity here to go short at 1906.50. Again, trading is all about making conscious, deliberate decisions. And here's what I look at when I look at this. I see weakness at the bid, weakness at the bid. Again, now weakness at the bid. The reason I didn't take this trade up here is because of all this weakness. If price now pops above 06.75, 07, with this weakness down here, I'd feel a little bit better about a long on a retest. And even if this works, and right now this, you know, if I would have popped in at, let's say 670, 625, I'd be up a little over a point right now. But if it bounces off of this level at 675, that this confirms that this level, which we know is a low volume area, is an unfair high in this current market. And so if I get the scenario now where this pops down below IB and it doesn't just pop right back up, we start getting some distribution and volume below it, then I'm taking that short off of this level and looking at my previous day's volume profile. Just bring that up for a potential target. Here's 05. If we start building volume around 05, then again, I'm going to start looking at this bottom here saying this is a very real possibility if we start breaking down below that level. So the way I look at it and the decision I made is, this doesn't look done down here, but that there is a better trade for me if it sets up below here to get me to my target and my goal for the day. Let's see. Now, as this failed off of 0650, then this threatens the edge below. Yes, exactly, Wayne. Perfect. Yes, that's exactly right, Wayne. Then you got to look. So you got to look and see what happens at the low. That's exactly right. Exactly. Perfect. Good job. That's exactly the way to look at this. So it failed here at 1906.75 for right now. So what I'm looking for is what happens. While that could have been a great trade and I could have, you know, jumped on, you know, a point and a half, as I did the assessment, there was still a risk. It popped up over this line. There was still a risk that this could just, buyers all of a sudden step in and boom, I'm gone. So the risk was more than I wanted to take relative to where I'm at with my account. And that's just, you see, it's just a conscious, objective decision that I made. And I might have been wrong in that decision. But I can tell you this, I certainly feel a lot more in control. I'm not in control of price movement, but I'm in control of what I do relative to the overall price movement. And if something tells me that there may be additional risk against me, then I have to make a decision that says, all right, I'm willing to take that risk, or that risk isn't worth it. And I said it's not worth it because the way this is setting up, if this is an unfair high, I likely have a really good trade down here on a retest if my scenario sets up. This is a tough morning to trade. I mean, this is tough. So price is going up, but what's happening at the bid? What's happening at the bid in that last bar? I know you know. It's right there in front of you. What's happening at the bid on that last bar? Sellers, right? No sellers. It looked like they stepped away. So when that happens, look, they were just engaged right here. They were engaged here, here. I mean, this is a new low, and look where they were engaged. And here. And now they just step aside. When you see that activity, you have to understand that uh, your risk is increased. So what I want to see is what happens if and when sellers engage. Now, this could just jump all the way to the top of the day. But I'm not taking this trade long off of 1907 here. So that would have gotten me to 500, but it wouldn't have given me a, the run that I was looking for. I would have taken a scale, and actually probably what would have happened is when I look at this print right here, this print would not have made me scale, and then this print would have made me scale. So my, what I would have taken on that is maybe 3 ticks, 2 ticks as profit. Again, the better trades for me is once price breaks these IB levels, as long as it remains, we're starting to see a little bit of selling here, as long as it remains a low volume area for the day, then I'm taking a trade off of the retest. Yeah, and that may be been, they see a break of that trend line and sellers just started getting out. So in the whole context of, when do you be patient, when do you execute, for me now is the time to be patient. I mean, I can tell you that a lot of traders would look at all this, especially if you were looking at some other chart. I mean, if you were looking at where's my tick chart? Or volume chart, look at that. Especially if you're looking at this, I mean, you're seeing buying, 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 price moving up. There was certainly a time in my life when I would say, oh, this is taking off. I want to jump on it. And you can see how price came up. It touched back down to 675 and took off. And that could have been a great trade. But it's, given the way price has been rotating around 675, there was nothing up to that point that said to me that there is a higher probability now of 675 working. All right, so I brought this page up. If you look over on the side here, you can see the taper on the volume profile to the upside. What I would be looking for now, is momentum dots through 25, 50, and I want to see volume start to build out. What I don't want to see is a low volume area here and then 4 or 5 ticks and price come right back down below it. I want to see volume starting to build out here. So I want you watching right here, right in here, and watching how this this profile builds or doesn't build. I want to see volume. I want to see one of these bars start growing volume. There we go, right there. 1911.50. So I'm going to go back over in the print now. And that might have been it. Messing with these charts here. So I'm seeing volume growing at 1911.75. This is kind of the scenario I wanted. So 1911.25. Remember, I wanted to avoid a scenario where it just went 1 to 3 ticks above IB and then just faded away. So what do I have here? I've got this buying cluster, these momentum dots, and opening swing high right here at 1909 quarter. There's no low volume area here. There's nothing else here. But if there is a trade to the upside, it would be likely right in this area, and that might be it. We'll see. Right in front of this buying. You can see some activity coming back at the bid. It could just be some of the selling from the move higher, though. That's going to break higher. Now, normally I want to look for a pullback, but this looks like it's just going to keep going. Yeah, there it goes. So my expectation is back up to this 1375 level, and we may see opportunity for a pullback there. When I look at the profile now, see how we're starting to get a little bit of volume up here? Got a low volume area here at 1250 and 12. IB high is at 1125, so there could be a trade long right at 12 and a quarter. There's 12 quarter. Almost back down to IB. I did a market order. I should have done a limit order here at 1175. So I'm pretty close to my target today. I see a lot of activity coming back in at the bid. Looks like it's holding right now. Look at that, 32. Just looking to manage some risk here. Okay, well, I did that to manage my risk. So I need to go back and take a look at the profile, see what's going on. I got a little bit of a low volume area here at 1075. See a little buying coming back, but now weakness here, neutral, weak at the top here. The profile certainly doesn't look finished to the upside, but you can see right here at the upside, we've got this volume knob right there. And with price not moving any higher, it was a pretty good sign that we'd see price start to rotate back down, which is why I started managing that trade. Yeah, range extension to the stop side, to the upside. Yeah, Wayne, so this approach gives you an opportunity to scalp as well as take trades, take some trades for longer areas. And again, what you can see I did here is I just, I managed my risk. I took one off at -1 tick so that if I got stopped at my stop, the impact to it, while it took away from my account, it wasn't going to be significant. So now I got to try to figure out what's really going on in this market. So we're back down below IB a little bit. There was just a little area of low volume at 1075. So I would look, if this is truly a low volume area that's going to hold, I would look for price to buyers to start coming in at 11, which is what they're doing right here. And I see weakness here. I just would rather have seen this at 0 down here at 1075. So if I would have seen 0 right here, and this is still a decent trade, right? I said I was looking for buyers to come in at 11. I just want to see a different finish, and I would have looked to get back in long there. But now I have to wait, which is fine. You know, not every trade is going to work. And like I said before, I manage to what I see in the print. And so when I saw a lot of activity coming back in the bid, I managed my downside. And here we go. So the temptation is for me to take a long right here. Everything I'm reading now says the buyers did step in at 11, and this is now we're likely to see that um, that level higher. So there's a strong temptation for me. The only reason I don't is I do not like the way that this finished 640 by 61 down here. There's 23 by 75 right in front of IB. We're getting strength back at the offer. Like I said, strong temptation to go long, but I just did not like the way that that finished. And what I mean by that is I just didn't want to see activity at the offer down here at 1910.75. This activity at the offer right here told me that this was slipping. All right, we're getting some strength back in here. So this would be a trade of faith right now, and not, if I were to go long, this would be a trade of faith, and one that I would have to have more hope in than what I'm reading in the print, because what I'm reading in the print is weakness here, and I would need to be hoping that this trade would work. So we've got that little nodule, low volume nodule at 1075 right there. This is interesting. So what's happened now is, if I look at I'm going to hold off now. If I look at the profile, I had what I wanted relative to the, where's it at? There it is. I had what I wanted relative to the structure of the profile. Low volume area right here. There's another one right here at 975. So what I'm looking for now is, do I have a level that I can lean on, right, to manage my risk against? And there's a low volume area right here, 909.75. Opening swing high is here at 909.50. So that's a level that I could lean on a little bit better. So I would come back over here, and you know, this 1910.50 is the high of the value area. So I still want to go long. I still don't see it finished completely to the upside, and actually the downside doesn't look all that finished either. But I need a level to trade against, and it's one of the things I talked about with low volume areas or key levels. If you wait to trade up against those levels, you can do pretty well, because you can manage your risk. It's like this one. I got in at 12. Better if I would have gotten in at 11.75 and done a limit order. I would have gotten filled, and probably would have managed this trade. Would have taken a little less loss, but it is what it is. So now I'm looking at the profile again. I got what I wanted in terms of the profile shape, and now I'm looking for a level to kind of lean on over here. And maybe this 1910, 1909.75. I've got I don't have the ending that I want yet. See, weakness, weakness, top of this is weakness. Again, it would be another hope trade. And by hope, I mean all I know in the print is that buyers are relenting here. They're getting weak again at the top. They're not re-engaging. Every time this moves higher, they show weakness again at the top. So any long that I have, I'm hoping that they'll eventually get some strength if it comes back up to 1150. The other thing that goes through my mind is with this kind of momentum to the upside, this is a highly unusual auction after this move higher. So a move back down to top of IB certainly makes some sense, but all the activity at the bid just below IB isn't normal if. So here's what I do is in my mind I'm saying, all right, what are these buyers and sellers trying to do? What's the market trying to do, and how good of a job is it in doing it? Well, at the opening of the day, it was trying to go up and down. It wasn't doing a good job either way. Finally got buyers to engage, got range extension above the IB, and looked like starting to build volume above the IB as well. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to bring it higher. Right now, how good of a job are they at doing it? They're not doing a good job. So they were doing a good job. And we even had, I wouldn't say that sellers just stepped aside. I mean, sellers didn't just step aside. They were somewhat engaged. So buyers were making progress and they were doing a really good job. And now they're not. So I need to find an area that they'll start doing a good job again, where they'll start holding or having some conviction that value is higher. And so when price is moving in a specific direction like that, and buyers are doing a good job, and I'm looking at the previous day's auction, I see a high volume area right here at 1250, right here from yesterday, 1250. Above 1250, and this was in my homework, I'm looking for this swing high up around 15 level, right in front of this low volume area, and then potentially up in front of this. Right, so I'm looking for this to go long. And so what I'm looking for is, and I can't find it in here, there's nothing here that would suggest a potential place to go long. So now I got to look in my day here. I've got a little bit of a low volume area right here at 909.75, and I believe we had opening swing high down here, yeah, at 909.50. But I can tell you this is just a little bit of an odd auction. That's a little better. Now this may have some potential. Now we're re-engaged back down here. So the other thing I can't close my mind to is that even though the profile shows the way it does, is that it might be over to the upside. And if it's over to the upside, then I need to go take a look at news. Did something happen? Specifically right around 9:44. Go back in my news. Report on Iraq. Oh, there it is. U.S. begins airstrikes in Iraq. Here you go. Right here. So when something changes in the market like that, because buyers were doing a really good job, I go back to the time at which it happened, and I'm looking right around that time. and there's a report that U.S. is beginning airstrikes in Iraq. Bingo. So what does that do to me? It says that this, even though I love this trade, I told you I take this trade, which I did, things may start to change now with the, if the U.S. is really starting airstrikes in Iraq. So what I want to do now, I want this to make sense to you, okay, is I want to build another volume profile. I want to take it from at least right here up through the top, and I want to build a new volume profile. So I can see selling coming in right around that time, right here, right around the time that news would have broke that U.S. is starting airstrikes in Iraq. And once news starts to hit like that, I'm telling you, anything can happen to price. So I'm looking at the profile, and I can see very, very slight interest below opening swing high, right there at 1909.50. Now here's what I'll tell you is, even though this worked as a good bounce, and this may bounce back up to the top of IB, this does not look finished down here to me. So does that make sense what I did? Right, the market was long, looked like it wanted to continue to go up. I took my trade where it made sense, and then the auction started getting a little funky. Started seeing sellers below this level, which was a little unusual, and the buyers went from kind of having their way and strength down to weakness. And so immediately when something seems to change in the market, I go back to, I go over to the news and say, did something happen? And having the U.S. begin airstrikes in Iraq tells me that at this price action has a lot of potential to start to get very whippy. And then I have to make a decision as to whether or not I really want to trade in that. Because what's likely happening is there are news reports that are coming in all over the place, and they may be contradictory news reports, right? And we may see Obama come out with some kind of press release here in a few minutes, but there are probably a lot of news reports. The print is saying go short right now. The print is suggesting go short. But anytime you add some global conflict like that and the U.S. is involved, then it increases the risk. It increases the risk because, you know, tentative, slowly moving down. Even if this was showed strength at the offer at 1909.75, weakness at the bid 1909.50, I might have taken the trade because, again, as price was coming down, I was looking for the next place. Remember that? I said I'm looking for the next place I can go long. This this high right here, the opening swing high lined up with the buying cluster and the momentum dots right there. But I also know that when we have a global conflict like this, that price can and usually will start to do a lot of different things. A little confused about how to interpret the volume at the top of the auction. I can see how the auction does not look finished, but doesn't the volume at 13 also mean there were sellers willing to step in, and doesn't that also put buyers at risk? Two things. So right here, yes, the 13 and the fact that we had this does not look finished to the upside. I'll tell you that right now. The fact that we had this volume pop out here, and this said that this wasn't finished to the upside, which gave me reason to want to take this trade. Again, my better entry would have been 1175, but that's neither here nor there. It's over. That gave me more reason to want to take this trade off of IB high. And it doesn't matter the scenario, I would have been stopped out anyway. And it wasn't until after I got into this trade when I started seeing additional activity at the bid here and down here when I said and thought, this isn't right. Something's not right here. With all the work that the buyers just did, I have to believe in the print. So something is causing not only the sellers to make progress on price, but something is causing the buyers not to re-engage. And that's when I go, again, look at news. So when you see this activity, which is why I managed my risk, so it's a great question, Ben. The profile doesn't look finished. And because it looked like this, my expectation is more volume means acceptance. But what was happening in this trade is this volume node right here wasn't acceptance, at least not at this point. It was sellers starting to come in and sellers starting to hold and then start to move price back down. And so that's what, again, got me managing this trade the way I did, and eventually saying, something's not right here. Something's going on, or most likely going on, because normally this kind of profile would make this a great trade. The way that this set up would make this a great trade. And the fact that we had more activity at the bid coming in underneath it just didn't make sense. Now again, the market can and will do anything it wants to do, and we have to be prepared for that. And again, as I looked at this and said, that's just not normal, especially after buyers had all this accomplishment. We're seeing the print or the volume profile start to take shape and not be finished to the upside. I could expect some slippage below IB, but not when we start engaging, sellers start engaging 2 ticks this heavy below the IB. Something's not right at that point, or something's different. That's exactly right. So he says I think I'm starting to get it. Basically, when we see volume, we assume acceptance until proven otherwise. Yes, or guilty. Yes, that's exactly right. And because when you look at volume profile and you see the acceptance, you see the volume, and you kind of assume acceptance on that, then if anything happens that doesn't confirm that, you can manage to it. You can effectively manage. And now IB is holding. So what I'm expecting is if I go back into news, that maybe I'll see something that kind of contradicts. Let me see, when would that be? Back down at 10 o'clock. FAA restricts U.S. operator flights over Iraq. That doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence. So, but you got it, Ben. That's exactly right. Light bulb, aha moment. That's great. Yes, and when the sellers started hitting the bid, that proved otherwise. And that's why I managed out of that trade. So remember, I got in right here, and then all of a sudden there was this significant activity coming in at the bid right there. I mean, something had happened, something different. I mean, again, I would expect price potentially to slip a little bit, but not like that. I mean, not that kind of pressure. So you got it. That's exactly right. When, especially in this kind of scenario, when price pops up and it doesn't look finished and we're getting acceptance, we're getting more volume, which would suggest acceptance, that's when you're looking for price to continue. Even now, this does not look finished to the upside. Look where VPOC is. Well, I guess that's not the overall VPOC. Overall VPOC is still down at 1906. But since we drew this, it's now over that level. Oh, that's true. A wholesale inventory number came in at 10. That's probably what did this. I was looking for something in the news relative to Iraq, which is yeah, wholesale trade at 10 a.m. I can tell you this, that there is no way with this auction down here that I would have went long off of opening swing high. There's no way I would have taken that trade. Now, the next time down here, I might have taken that trade, but this, again, the way that this auctioned at the end just was a little riskier for me. So we got a little bit of a low volume area at 1275 right there. So this has the potential to be another opportunity. Long here at 13. Again, looking for 1475 or higher. 1375 was the original target. So you can see it doesn't take much in a day. Oil is the same way. I mean, oil, something can happen and boom, you're. See if I can pull up my oil chart. Oh, there's no audio. I'm sorry about that. I'll go back to this. I'm very sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Must have bumped my mute button. Oil is a very mechanical instrument. And so when I look at the oil profile here, I see this big, long area that's a low volume area. A couple of times it bounced right off of this and, you got some ticks on that. But the way that this volume came out here, this suggested a lot of buyers holding down at 97.25, right? Price didn't move. It hit here several times, 97.25. So if short is going to be the consideration, and this is not finished to the downside, I mean, from a profile standpoint, it doesn't look finished. But what you have to understand is buyers held in this area. Sorry about the volume. And so what I would look for, because oil is a very mechanical instrument, I use these fibs. And what I really am looking for is a move back anywhere from the 61.8 to 76.4. I'm looking for this type of retracement. I'm looking at retracements and extensions on oil. And so I'm looking for something to align in this, beginning here and somewhere inside of here. So there is a potential trade. It's right up at the back of this low volume area. And while you could make a trade short here and that would have worked several times, the risk, and when you have a situation like this where you got a lot of low volume area, you've got a whole range of low volume, the risk is that price could easily come all the way up this low volume area, kind of fill this in before moving down. So yeah, you would have missed these trades a couple of times, but the better trade is up here. So what I would do now is start here at 97.51. I really don't want to see this thing kind of come through 97.55. But then I would start looking at the print at 97.51. I would to 55. I would start looking for weakness and strength coming back in at the bid. And if I got that, I might take a trade. So 55 would be the number. There's weakness, strength. Well, this one's relatively easy. Not saying it's absolutely going to work. The better trade is up here at 53. But you see the weakness that came back in? It went up to the 55 level. I was looking 51 to 55. Came back up, got weakness at the offer. And now simply if I got, see, I'm just going to, if I got strength, I'd let that go. So my stop is pretty small on oil. My target was all the way back down here. So I had a pretty strong risk reward. And I got to, now that I think about it, trying to trade oil when the U.S. is bombing Iraq is probably not a smart idea. Right? And we see strength coming back in. So that was a scenario that I generally look for on oil. But again, while there are reports of U.S. bombing Iraq, probably not the best time to trade oil. But if I would have given this a little bit more room, 10 ticks is, this would have worked well. That's what I was looking for. Oh well. But that, now you can see how it is. You know, with oil, the levels, it poked through this low volume area and went all the way up to 97.60. Oil can be, again, don't mean the pun, but can be a little slippery. But these are the levels I'm generally looking to take a trade short, between this 51 and 57. Now, if I would have waited for 57, I would have been fine. I was willing to give it more than 3 ticks. I was willing to wait till 57, but as I looked at the print, you know, the print at the time when I got in showed weakness and strength at the bid, and then just came up and finished out up here. That's just want you to know this still has potential all the way back down to 97.25. So the risk reward on this trade was 10 to 1. Which is pretty good. All right, back here at the ES ranch, it looks like this might be starting to head back up. We're going to run out of time here soon, so you know what, I will tell you that I'm feeling a little pressure to take a trade because we're going to run out of time, and I want to hit my objective by the time is over, and that's just not a good way to trade. So VPOC just shifted up here to 1913 from that time we drew that last profile, where if you look at the whole, right, so from the time we drew this profile, and now what I would do is is, look, we got a really nice distribution up here. This is showing really good acceptance. When I go back to the original profile, still a little thin, but you can see 1913, we're getting some acceptance. Right now it's finished to the upside. But that could change. If the buyers start re-engaging 1375, 14, then on a longer term chart, let's go back to it, see if I can find that. On a longer term chart, what are we looking for? We're looking for above, we're looking for price to start coming around 1475 level and then eventually testing up to 17. If we start getting acceptance around that 1475, 15 level, I would expect to see 17 quarter, maybe even higher. So the other thing that you can do now that it's auctioning up here, you can take a look from this swing low. Take a look at the profile here. You can see from this time it popped up, very little interest down here. Back above IB high, getting a lot of acceptance. Again, it doesn't look quite finished to the upside. So with the acceptance above IB, I certainly would give weight to the long. When we look at what we have from a cluster standpoint, neutral, 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 selling, buying, neutral, selling down here, buying up here. There's nothing inherently in here that would suggest to go long. The only thing that I can see is, again, we're getting acceptance above this level, and that acceptance would typically mean on a market that's moving higher, a test to the upside. But we're still getting a little bit of erratic movement. And you can see that trade on oil now. The level worked. If I would have just waited to the back edge of my area, 97.57. Again, I'm expecting price back down to 97.25. The trade worked. I just didn't give it enough room, and I got in at the front side of that area, as opposed to more the middle or back edge. So, but so far that trade's worked real well. Yeah, I won't do that. So this looks like we're getting strength back at the bid. Possibility here that we'll see a new high for the day. I can tell you that when I used to run a trading room, that there were times when the trading room was going to close, and I was more willing to take some risk like that to get a trade in, and it was just really stupid trading. It didn't help anybody. So again, part of the psychology of trading is just kind of overcoming your weaknesses and getting more patience. So you see this volume growing right here? This is also, again, suggesting the auction's not over. We'll probably see this just pop. But if you were trading based on this profile, again, whenever I make a trade, I'm always making a trade or trying to make a trade based on my risk. Where can I manage my risk the best? Because there's a high probability that if I get in where I can manage my risk the best, that my risk reward is going to always work in my favor. So I can wind up leaving the day green. And it may not be what I wanted to get out of the day, though the day isn't over. By managing my risk and letting some of the winners go, I'm still going to wind up green. And in the long run, this is not a sprint. Day trading is a marathon, and you got to let the market tell you what to do. All right, so again, when I look at the profile, not really finished to the upside. This little volume node tells me sellers are stepping in. Weakness, weakness, we got some selling. This would be an opportunity likely for a breakout. And the level that I'm looking at above was that 17 quarter level. And the reason I say breakout is because look at all the selling, and this is initiative selling up here. All this selling coming in once, twice. If this starts getting into strength and starts breaking out, above 15.25. Remember, this was a higher volume area yesterday. We're likely to see some amount of buying continue to push price up. So this would be another area that I would look at a potential breakout trade, simply because I'm looking at a target above, and I can see the selling coming in. If buyers press into those sellers, they're going to get stopped pretty quick. Does that make sense? Sorry, I don't know how I must be hitting this mute button accidentally. So sorry about that. I wanted to show you this oil trade, and I want to make sure everybody understood what I did. So on oil, I'm looking to trade a retracement between this Fibonacci level of 61.8 and 76.6. I'm looking to trade in there. And I took the trade. I gave it a pretty tight stop, got stopped. If I would have waited for the back end of this trade, for this level, it would have been a great trade. Or at least the other thing I didn't do is when I took this trade is I didn't give it room enough to let that level work. But I want to make sure that you understand what I'm doing relative to the levels. And if you look at the profile, and this is one case where sometimes the profiles don't exactly with oil, because it is a little bit of a tricky, slippery slope. I need to scrunch this up a little bit more. As price pulled back, the reason I got it a little earlier than later, because this was the end of that low volume area. And it shows you the acceptance down here. So this is where you would have looked to take your first target and then look for further extension. Again, sorry about the volume. I think what happened today is I got caught between my leg and the chair. So here it is again. Here's the first level right here. It's 97.43. I'm looking for a trade short in this area. Now this got a nice finish to the downside, but the trend seems to be lower. So this is where I look for my short, right in between these two fib levels on a retracement. And if I open this up, there's the weakness, that's what I'm looking for right there. Do CL tend to overrun LVAs typically? Let me put it this way. Not all the time, but you have to understand that it's definitely a possibility. So typically what I'm doing is I'm waiting to see this print, weak at the offer, strong at the bid. I'm getting in and putting my stop behind this level. And if there's a volume cluster analysis that helps me with my stop, then even better. Pretty cool though, huh? That's a bonus that you weren't expecting. Did everybody get what I did? Okay. So now based on the profile, what I would say is you got to watch. We're starting to get a little bit of volume back up in here. What you don't want to see weakness back down around this low volume area. You don't want to see weakness at the bid. You want to see more strength at the bid, and then you would look to scale down here, and then possibly out in front of this low volume area right here. This has got a pretty nice finish to the day. It finished quickly with a pop, so you have to respect that as a possible low end of the day. So same principles with the volume profile, just a different instrument. Okay, appreciate that. Let's talk about the other instruments. So with oil, CL, I am typically using an 8-3 chart. And my volume cluster analysis is this 3-4 initiating spread 6. And I instead of having it 3-5, I have it 4-6. I actually could make that probably a little bit bigger because the range on oil is typically a little bigger. But right now I've got it set at 4-6 in terms of responsive spread and initiating spread for the VCA. Momentum is very standard. It's 3 rows. It's a standard setting for momentum. I don't change that at all. You can see this is very standard. My momentum analysis for oil is very standard. Make sure my mute button didn't get stuck again. My ninja settings, and this is one actually where I would recommend taking this up to 4 and 5. And you know what I'm interested in seeing is if I take that to 4 and 5, well, I can't do it. I'd have to go back and do replay. I would be interested in seeing if that level that got me into changed with this higher setting. So with oil and you know, TF, my strong bid ask level is 4-5 or 5-5. Okay. And then what I'm doing is I will start a new profile on oil right at the open at 8 o'clock. And this is a 24/7 chart, so it's not RTH or the 9 energy. Oh, I see how that's happening. Sorry, I just found out how my mute button was getting caught. So what I'll do is from yesterday's session, I will draw a profile. And you can see in the overnight, this level holding pretty well at 97.50, 97.51. When we opened, it provided a good level, another good level, but once it broke through, once I open it up, once it broke through, that was my trade. Ha! Came back up to 51 and provided a good measure short. And then up here it slipped through and then it came back down. So what I'll do in the overnight for oil is I will draw a overnight profile from 1:30 the previous day, 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern, all the way through to the open. And then when the open starts, I'll do the same thing. I'll start a new profile. And I'll start to look to compare the levels and see if I can get any confluence. Now, I will tell you that with oil, one of the nuances for me, two things, nuances with oil, is because oil is still traded heavily. It's still, most of the volume is during the U.S. session, but the ratio is a little bit different than the ES, and there's more oil traded overnight in the pre-market, and it starts a little bit earlier than the ES from a ratio standpoint. So I typically will include the Globex sessions because there are things that happen while we're all sleeping in the Middle East when it's daylight. And the levels within oil, because so much of it is tied to the politics and things going on in the Middle East, the context for me is very relevant when something happens in the middle of the night because something in Middle East occurs. I want to be able to see those levels. And so I will put more weight onto the Globex session in oil than I typically will the Globex session for ES. Does that make sense? And I can, Nestor, I can look to write down my settings. So one of the nuances for oil is the Globex volume profile means more to me than on the ES. And then the other nuance with oil is I don't expect these low volume areas to hold. With the oil, I'm looking more at the acceptance levels. So I'm looking from distribution to distribution. I'm looking to see if price is accepted higher or lower. And then I'm looking for these areas to be more price magnet than these low volume. Sometimes these low volume areas, you can set your clock by them. Price will come right back up to it and turn around. And like this first time, once it passed down, it came up to 51, 50, 51, turned around and just moved lower. So the first time you get a low volume area, this broke through and it started building out more volume to the downside. It came back up down here, tested that level for the short. But the second time, it's a low volume area. You got to treat it as such. But the other nuance with oil is I start looking at these fib levels on a retracement, specifically when the market is trending. And I am, if I have one of these that line up, great. But the mistake I made on this trade is I really didn't give it enough room through that fib level. So do I have a specific time I find works best to draw the profiles, example, beginning of London session or end? So with the ES, I have found that it doesn't really matter. So with the ES, what I will do is I will draw that overnight session. I will draw that overnight session as soon as the, oh, this is just my RTH session chart. Let me get my other one here. I'm here. I'm not, I haven't muted. All right, so you all have this chart. It's the 6-4 Globex chart. So I'll draw it at the beginning of the Globex session, and I'll run that all the way through the end of the Globex session, you know, right about when this market opens. And what I found is that typically any volume profile that gets built prior to the European session really isn't significant. Now, if you wanted to, you could draw the profile. I'll just show you the difference. If you drew the profile from the Globex session, start of the Globex session, you might see something different. But when I look at high volume areas, they're the same. When I look at low volume areas, that's the same, that's the same. And the reason that it's relatively the same and it doesn't matter is because the amount of volume from after the US market closes until the European session starts is relatively small. So the volume that's generated from the European session usually is enough so that the time between when the Globex session starts and the European session ends, there's enough volume or much more volume in the European session that it basically lines up really well. So I start my my ES session right after it opens again at I guess that would be 4:30 Eastern. But you could, if you wanted to, start your session on the if you were trading the ES and the overnight, started at the European session open. Let's take a look at a couple other things. All right, I have templates for 6E. I need to build one for TF, NQ, YM, CL, and I'll upload those to the course page. And I will, for the sake of time, I will build. It may take me a couple of days here to get that done. I'll work on it over the weekend. I'll build a narrative around each one that talks to at least what I'm looking at from a nuance standpoint. Okay, will that be helpful? I'm not on mute, am I? Okay. And bonds, I actually think I have one for bonds right now up. Is that ZN? Is that right? ZN? Yeah, okay. ZN, and the one thing when I build my profiles, you know, I'm looking for longer term because I want to get my profiles on one page. So my probe and rotation are things like, you know, 20-10, 30-10. Because I want all the volume. I want fewer bars. so I can get more profiles. And here's an example this morning where we built a low volume area. Price came up, retested. I mean, look at that, right to the tick on that long, right to the tick. But, you know, the point in all of this is to be able to show you how this works and how you can start looking. I mean, look at this in this instrument here. We've got a distribution, another distribution. All of this is suggesting higher and higher prices. Now, what I would also do with ZN is have one that was, I like the 6.4 just because it's a very much more sensitive chart. So I would have my order flow chart be like a 6.4 and then start building my profile for the day at the open again. But you can see how true these levels are. Right, here's another one. And this is what I mean when I say, when you understand the fundamentals of the volume profile, when you begin to understand those fundamentals, you can find some pretty phenomenal trade opportunities. Price moved up above, it pulled down almost exactly to the tick and then took off. And in the print, you know what you're looking for. There's another example there. You know what you're looking for. And the goal with all of this is to take a longer view, identify the levels, you know, across time, a longer view into the most current context. And what you're looking for is places where the current context lines up or you have confluence with the longer term context. Those are places where you are going to have some amazing trades. So here is the ZN. And the other one is, oh, you want, oh, okay. We can, I'll tell you what, people want a break. I get that. It's been 3 hours again. So let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll come back and we'll look at a few more, okay? Thanks. Okay, let's see. Question here, 8.5 VPOC, 8.6 VPOC, and a minor LVA yesterday, all three between 15, 1550. So far, every approach has been pushed back 5 times so far today. I'm guessing that this should be expected and that a break above will likely have a lot of snap to it. Very good, Wayne, you're right. Making it hit a VPOC likely of the 21 area, yes, and much more likely, and probably more, maybe not today, but over the next several days, you're exactly right. So maybe giving a bounce off a longer term level, 1970, a little more wiggle room to retrace, to hold for a higher target. Very good, Wayne, very, very good. I think that's a great plan, and it's fun to see you reading it that way. That's awesome. You're ready to teach the next course, right? Next class? You could, you can hear me, right? All right. All right. Oh, okay. Let's take a look at our friend 6E. Let me bring this over here. So like everything else, oh, that's CL. I need to find my other 6E chart. My issue is that I got a whole bunch of charts up, even with as many windows that I have or screens that I have. My screens still tend to hide on me. There it is. So what I really want to show you is kind of the same thing over and over again, because this is the process that you should go through relative to any instrument and volume profile. Is you're always looking to take an outside-in approach to context. So what's my context over a long period of time? What's my context over less period of time? And when I'm talking about, and how do you determine what those context levels are? So I'll show you here. And I actually really don't like that color. That's just easier on my eyes right there. So what I've done is I built a chart here, going back a little bit, and when I start narrowing my field for different levels, what I'll do is I'll look and I can see activity. Remember I showed you on the ES these levels? What I'm looking for are kind of these major swing areas. And even though there was a little bit of extension down beyond this one, what I'm starting to do with every instrument is I look to see where the major swings are. And sometimes they go a little higher, sometimes they go a little lower. I don't really care about that. Where are the major swings? And I want to start based on price. I'm watching what is price respecting, because at the end of the day, I have a low volume right here, but price isn't respecting that. It did a little bit right there. But if price isn't respecting a level, kind of a low volume area, then I'm not going to include it. So what I'm looking for in every market, I don't care what it is I go from the outside in and I start identifying where are these swing levels. So what I want to see is, what does the profile look like in this swing level, right? Until it broke through to the downside. What's that profile? And my expectations is that it would be the same as what we have over here. However, now what I want to see is from this swing low to this swing high and back down. I want to see what, if anything, changed in the profile. And what I can see is, you see right here where this was a high volume area for a while, and that high volume area over here became a low volume area in this swing. So it became a low volume area, which suggested in the shorter time frame, I have a short opportunity here or here. This is a less risky one because this is still a low volume area on this profile. And you can see it come back up, right? So my profile runs to here. So my plan, my trade plan would have been a short off of this level because I have confluence here and here. Short off of this level, looking for at least 13627, with a likely test down to 13499, 135. And once it came through there, there was opportunity to the downside. Of course, this data wasn't here for this profile. But for this trade on this day, I go from long-term into short-term. And the other thing that I could do is to generate from the top here, what I'm looking for is just what is this market changing at all? Is this market changing? And what I can start to see again, what was high volume area is now low volume area, meaning the current participants aren't really interested in trading here. So price is now down. My next day, that's this next bar, just so you can see better. My trade plan is I want to short. Now, what I don't know is I don't know that I necessarily want to long off of this level down here. It turned into a low volume area. But what I know up to this date is that this represents a level that has consistency in terms of a low volume area. And so what I do is, now that I have these levels, and now we're below this, I have to draw a profile. Oh, what did I just do? I have to draw a profile here. And now as I'm looking to trade, I see my VPOC here. Hang on 1 second. I got a low volume area here. So I start doing my if then. So if price pops above, comes above this low volume area, this is where I'm looking to take my long at 13406, right in that area. So what I do, I'm not doing anything live here now. So as I come down to 13406, which is here, this would be the low volume area. And I'm looking for a print that would tell me to get into this trade long. And right now I have a print that would suggest a long trade. And I'm going to manage it right behind this selling cluster and this momentum. So my stop, and this may take a long time now with this trade just given where things are, but my stop is behind here. So terrible fill, let's say I get in right now at 134.10. My stop is down here at 134.01. So basically nine ticks. But my potential on this trade is back up to this high volume area.